We are thrilled to welcome back an old friend to WJR, Laura Bonnell, who is now the founder and CEO of the Bonnell Foundation, living with cystic fibrosis. Laura worked with us years ago and went on to found this really great foundation with and really for in honor of her two daughters who fight this disease daily. And Laura has done some extraordinary work, and she recently did some really awesome work. She traveled to Egypt to talk about cystic fibrosis in Egypt. And I don't know if you know this or not, Steve, the life expectancy for someone with CF diagnosed today is about 50 years. In Egypt, it's 8 years. So there is this wide disparity of healthcare around the globe. And this is something as a mother that Laura did not want to see this or hear this. Laura, we're glad you could spend a few minutes talking to us today.
It is great to talk to both of you. Oh, I love you both.
Now, Laura, tell us why you went to Egypt. Obviously, that statistic I gave, and I think I had the numbers right on that. The statistics I gave for that is enough to make any person, any mother who is dealing with this health issue within her family want to run and help. But is that what prompted you to go?
It is. You know, I've been talking with Dr. Samia Nasser, who is the pediatric pulmonologist at the University of Michigan, and she was my daughter's pediatrician. And I've been talking to her about this for years, but I didn't realize the extent of what was happening in Egypt, her native country. She was going back every year saying, we have to test people for CF, and they're like, no, it doesn't exist here in the Middle East. And she was like, yes, it does. And so she finally did a study and was allowed to test and diagnosed 62 patients. And then she, did a paper, put it through the Journal of Cystic Fibrosis in 2007. And then they right away tested 600 more CF people, more people with CF. And now they're sure they're going to diagnose thousands more. But yeah, it was an eye opener. I did not realize the health disparity between countries.
Right. And Laura, I followed your travels on social media, so it was great to see all those pictures and the videos that you posted. But the one that touched me I'm going to try not to cry when I say it. The one that really touched me the most was when, because you met with mothers whose children had CF, and you pulled out a picture of your two girls who are adults now and extremely successful, both of them. And you said, these are my two daughters who have CF. And these moms breaking down in tears, knowing that there was hope for their children.
It was unbelievable. It really literally took my breath away, almost knocked me to the ground. And I started sobbing because this mother, through an interpreter, asked me if her child would live. And it took me back to diagnosis day for myself. And I just thought, you just want hope. You just want someone to tell you everything's going to be okay and that your child is going to live. So when this mom, Isra, I believe is her first name, when she asked that to me with just so much hope in her eyes, and then I showed her a picture of my girls and I said, your team here is experienced. You're going to work with what you have and try to save your baby, who is only 7 months old right now. But yeah, that was incredible. And like I said, language doesn't matter. As moms, we hugged each other and just didn't let go for the longest time. It was incredible. And I didn't realize the hope that I was bringing. I learned so much from them and vice versa, but they said, seeing my daughters 25 and 27, that they now have hope. Because,
your beautiful daughters, Laura, Molly, and Emily, all of a sudden, 27 and 25. Thank goodness we're not getting any older. But the realism is when they were born, the thought was, Laura, that they may see 15. Now, can we read between the lines as it applies to cystic fibrosis that the research and the care has gotten to a point where you're satisfied that inroads are being met?
I think it's hard to well, it's not hard to answer, but let me just say that we have wonderful drugs that are out there, but we're not close to the finish line yet. We don't have a cure. We have a triple combination drug that corrects the underlying condition of cystic fibrosis, but it helps 90% of the population. For example, it helps my daughter Molly, but not Emily. She had a reaction to it. Plus, there's 10% of the CF population, possibly even more, that it doesn't help because of their rare mutations. And there's like 2,000 different CF mutations. So we have a long way to go, but yes, we've come a long way. But I don't think we're there yet. And I wouldn't say we're like, phew, we're in a safe spot yet. I think we have decades to go still.
Well, and once again, I think the United States is really leading the world on this one, which is, something we can all be really proud of. But I'm going to go back to Egypt for a second. Egypt is not a third world country. And I was just shocked by this standard for this particular disease and this particular care for cystic fibrosis. I mean, here, yes, it's a serious disease, and we all know that. But like you said, there are treatments. There are organizations that, like yours, the Bonnell Foundation, that can help parents. So I was just shocked to hear that in Egypt, that kids just don't have that hope. You think that that's going to change?
Yeah, and there's a lot of shock to go around. I think even in the United States, we've underdiagnosed people of color, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, the African American community. There are so many more people with CF than we acknowledge because it's been treated as a white disease. So I think, even here in the United States, we have a lot of work to do. Also, we're approving drugs, but then in Canada, can't approve the same drugs, and then each province has to approve the life-saving drugs. So in the UK, it takes longer to approve drugs. Like, there has to be something that we can do worldwide that connects it, so that if you have a disease, it shouldn't matter where you live. You should get the same treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's hard because governments are different, but yes, in Egypt. So now that the Ministry of Health kind of understands that cystic fibrosis exists, it's about getting doctors and distributors of medications to allow it to come into the country. Because right now the Ministry of Health is helping with vitamins and enzymes under 6 years old, but they're not giving enough. They don't understand why you need enzymes every day to digest food. So sometimes families are like, okay, well, they either have to do a lower dose, which is harmful, or they have to give enzymes every other day. And if you have more than one child with cystic fibrosis, which is more common than people realize, then you really got a challenge. So, we just, I think as a world, have a lot to do to make it an equal playing field all the way around. But yes, now that these doctors are aware of it, they're in it 100%. I'm so impressed with them. They are really, really getting up to speed on everything. A nutritionist traveled with me from the University of Michigan, and she was just updating them on nutrition and enzymes. And they're going from just being pulmonary doctors to cystic fibrosis doctors. And they're just an incredible team. It was an honor to be with them and to meet those families.
And Laura, with cystic fibrosis, pretty much a disorder that mostly affects the lungs, but other organs can come into play with this. I would imagine the pandemic has been a red alert for those who suffer from cystic fibrosis.
It's interesting because actually we were prepared. We mask, we are good hand washers, we stay away from germs. So we really were much more prepared, and I wish I tried to get to the past administration to say, hey, use this as an example. We can tell you why to stay 6 feet apart, why it's important. We can prove to you that masking is 2,000,000% effective. So it was really, it's just too bad I didn't have the pull to get, in front of the United States, in front of everybody, because we have so much knowledge about it. There's a bacteria called B. cepacia, and we discovered long ago, about 30 years ago, that if you stay 6 feet apart and don't mask, you won't pass it. Unknowingly, people who were gathering together were getting it and then dying from it. So the whole population was dying. So, yeah, I think it was hard. I think it's still hard for people with transplants, whether it's a lung transplant or any transplant. The vaccine works for some, not for others. So I think that people think it's, quote, back to normal is difficult for the CF population in that sense. But we understood clinical trials. We didn't second guess any of that. So in that sense, it was easier for us.
Laura, very quickly, your website is what?
TheBonnellFoundation.org.
TheBonnellFoundation.org. And Steve and everyone listening, the Bonnell Foundation does extraordinary work. They give out scholarships. They help with lung transplants. Not to mention
Great
they help
work.
newly diagnosed families with getting the resources that they need into their homes. All the stuff that Laura didn't have 25 and 27 years ago, she is now providing to these families. So God bless, Laura. We thank you so much for coming on and talking about it.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
Great chatting with you, Laura. Thank you again. Laura Bonnell, founder, CEO of the Bonnell Foundation, living with cystic fibrosis, here on The Album Show on 760 WJR.